Hey guys! Before we get started on today's Traveler's Notebook page, I just wanted to show you really quickly again how I crop my photos to be a full page Traveler's Notebook size. So I have just imported my photo. I took this photo on my iPhone. I edited in the Color Story app and then I just brought it into Photoshop, and all I'm going to do is use the crop tool, and I want to crop it to 4¼ by 8¼ If you're using metric, that's 11 centimeters by 21 centimeters. And then I'm just gonna crop my photo. So with a photo like this, I've got a little bit of difficulty because I would not normally recommend cropping anybody's eyeballs. Unfortunately, here I'm gonna have to crop two people's eyeballs, and yes, I count Lily as a people, but I'm just kind of going for sort of somewhere centered between the two of us. If I wanted my page to focus more on me, of course I could crop it to the left. If I wanted it to be more on Lil, I could crop it to the right. I am going to crop it as close to the middle as I can, so I'm getting both of our pupils in there. Hit return, and that is my Traveler's Notebook page. I just print at home on a Canon Pixma printer. I've run out of photo paper, so I'm printing these on just regular white smooth cardstock. It's about 160 GSM. I just use whatever I can get a hold of, to be honest. And then I'm going to go ahead and really simply finish up this page with some Kellie Stamps. So you can see here the difference when I just printed on that matte paper as opposed to photo paper. It is a little bit duller, but that's fine. It's just a different kind of look. Now I'm working in the middle of my notebook today, so I'm going to do my stamping on a separate piece of paper just because I want to create a pattern with some of these pattern stamps from the Good Vibes set. And to do that, I want to make sure that this is going to be as flat as possible. Now I'm going to kind of use this stamp as my title. I'm going to build on that later, but I want to stamp that first before I build my pattern around it. So I'm using a little bit of Pinkfresh Studio Detail Black, and it's stamped really nicely. I'm just going to give it just a tiny second to dry, and then I'm going to use these circle stamps, a circle stamp, and some of those other little kind of pittery-pattery stamps that are on this set. This was actually the first time that I'd used this stamp though, and you can see it's a really big solid block, so I want to make sure that that is well prepped before I start. So I just give it a really good going over with my sand eraser, and I am just stamping off on my scrap paper there. It's not actually my desk, it's very hard to tell. I just want to make sure that those stamps are stamping nice and solid, which they are. Now the colors for this pattern I've kind of taken out of the photo there, so I've got the yellow and kind of paler pink, and I'm going to use some coral later, but for these larger circles I am going to use these two kind of paler colors. Now this pattern is not a repeat stamping pattern, it's just a little bit more random than that. What I want to do is kind of create sort of that look of a bokeh photo when a camera's out of focus and there's all those little circles of light. I want to create kind of the same thing with this stamp. What I'm going to do though is kind of have that pattern falling down the page. So I want the circles to be a lot more sparse at the top, still some, and you can see I've stamped some off the edge of the pattern. And then towards the bottom of the page I want them to be a lot more sort of solid, a lot more grouped together. Now the idea is that when these colors overlap they kind of create a third color. It's a little bit kind of peachy orangey colored, and so I am not worried about like overlapping. That's the whole point of this. So I want to really get as much kind of overlap as I can while still having those two colors clear. And really what all I'm trying to do is just I'm just kind of using my judgment to create a balance between those two colors and leaving enough white space to create that idea of it being like sort of light to dark, I guess, and just filling in any spots that I need to. Now, before I go too much further, I also wanted to add these kind of, I don't know what you call them, they're little dash stamps. I really love them. Kind of adds an extra texture to the stamping, just an extra layer. And again, I'm overlapping some of those circles, and I'm also twisting the stamp on the block so that it's not always going the same direction, just to create a little bit of movement. And I am doing that same idea of having more stamps towards the bottom and a few towards the top, but I am still obviously adding them towards the top. And again, this is just kind of a an intuition thing. There's no rhyme or reason when you're doing sort of a repeat stamp pattern. It's very easy to make things like rigid and grid-like, and this is the complete opposite of that. So it's a little bit kind of more arty, I guess, a little bit more arty, and just placing those stamps where you need to. Now these ones here, I'm just doing little single ones by just partially inking one of those little dash marks on that stamp, and then just kind of alternating where those are going to go as well. And that's it. That's how quickly it was to create my own kind of pattern paper, I guess, on this page. Perfectly suited to the colors of my photo. And because I've done those on separate papers, I'm just going to really quickly whip these back into my notebook using a little bit of double-sided tape just around the edges. And I'm lining up the outside edge before I take off the rest of the tape and place that into my notebook. I definitely made sure that these two pieces of paper were going to fit into my notebook before I started, hence the reason I don't have to trim anything now. But I find it's always easier when you're sticking these things in if you just do one edge first and then stick down the rest. Now, like I said, I wanted to add to this title a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. So I've pulled out some alpha stickers. I've decided to go with these peachy ones, very old ones from Studio Calico. Perfectly Imperfect Us, and that's it. Off camera, I did add a little label down the bottom of my photo just to put the date stamp in there. Figured it was important to have a record of when we actually took this photo. And that's this page all done. Now don't forget to check out the description box. There is a discount code there if you want to pop over to the Kellie Stamps store and pick up this set for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.